One minute you're planning dinner, the next, the world falls silent. No one prepares you for the moment your partner is suddenly gone. Not the funeral, not the quiet house, not the empty side of the bed. Sudden widowhood isn't just grief. It's a disorienting, invisible storm that touches every part of life. In this video, we explore what really happens after sudden loss and why it's so important to talk about it. There's a kind of silence that follows sudden loss, not just the absence of footsteps or a voice you knew by heart, but a silence that swallows everything familiar. A cup left in the sink, a chair no longer pulled out, a favorite song that now aches instead of comforts. Sudden widowhood isn't just grief, it's shock. It's a reality too heavy to hold and too surreal to explain. Especially in later life, when routines are built around shared mornings and slow conversations, the absence becomes more than emotional. It's physical, tangible. And yet, we don't talk about it enough. We offer casseroles, we say, "Let me know if you need anything," but we rarely talk about the nights that feel endless, or the mornings that feel too quiet. We don't talk about how identity changes when half of your we is suddenly gone. This video isn't just for those who've lost a partner. It's for the adult child trying to support their grieving mother. It's for the friend who doesn't know what to say. It's for anyone trying to make sense of a loss that came without warning. Together, we'll walk through what happens when life shifts in an instant. From the numbness of the first days to the slow, complicated process of rebuilding a life that now looks unfamiliar. Because widowhood isn't a single event, it's a journey, and no one should have to walk it alone. 1 minute, you're folding laundry, planning dinner, waiting for your partner to come back from the store or a doctor's appointment. And then, the call, the fall, the siren, the moment everything fractures. No matter how long you've been married, no matter how strong the bond, nothing prepares you for the moment someone says, "I'm so sorry." It's surreal, really. You expect to cry or scream, but most people don't, not right away. Instead, there's this eerie numbness, like your body is moving through a tunnel while the world outside keeps going. You hear people talking, but the words don't land. You keep thinking it's a mistake, that any second now, your phone will ring and it'll be them, laughing about how they lost their keys again, that you'll hear the garage door open, that this can't be real. But then it is. The fog sets in, a heavy, confusing haze where time doesn't make sense anymore. Days bleed together. You forget whether you've eaten. You stare at walls without knowing why. And somehow, even in this state, people expect you to make decisions. Big ones. About burial, about insurance, about obituaries and bank accounts. You find yourself sitting across from a funeral director, nodding at things you don't fully hear. You sign papers you barely read. Friends come and go. They hug you, drop off casseroles, and whisper, "You're so strong." But you don't feel strong. You feel suspended, like you're watching a movie of your own life, and you just want to rewind to the part before everything fell apart. That fog? It's your mind protecting you, because sudden widowhood isn't just sad, it's disorienting. It's standing in the same home, in the same clothes, with the same routines, but nothing feels familiar anymore. The air has changed. The silence is heavier. And through it all, you try to keep functioning, answering calls, finding a clean outfit for the service, pretending to nod when someone says, "He's in a better place." But all you want is one more moment, one more laugh, one more time to say, "I love you." You don't even know if you said it that day. That's the part no one prepares you for. The suddenness, the fog, the way life doesn't pause just because yours has. And yet, in the middle of the numbness, something else begins, something quiet, a shift, a breath. The start of surviving what feels impossible. Because while the loss may be sudden, the journey through it is slow and deeply human. You walk through the front door and the silence hits you like a wave. It's not just quiet, it's hollow. The TV isn't playing the evening news. No one calls out from the kitchen asking how your day was. There's no sound of footsteps, no clinking of dishes, no hum of shared life. Just stillness. And that stillness echoes in everything. An empty chair at the table, a half-used tube of toothpaste in the bathroom, a pair of slippers you can't bring yourself to move. The routines that once grounded you, now they unravel. Meals for one feel meaningless. You pour coffee out of habit only to realize there's no one to hand the second mug to. The bed feels too big, and the other pillow stays untouched, as if waiting. You turn to say something about the weather, the neighbor's dog, the way the light hits the window, and then you remember, they're not here, and that moment folds into silence again. These aren't the dramatic moments people talk about. These are the quiet heartbreaks, the kind that come in waves during the most ordinary parts of the day. You might find yourself eating crackers for dinner, not because you're out of food, but because cooking for one feels pointless. You might stay up too late watching TV because the thought of turning off the lights and walking down that quiet hallway alone feels unbearable. Even opening the closet becomes a minefield. Their coat still hangs there. Their scent lingers in the fabric. And part of you wants to leave it exactly as it is, like a memory you can still touch. That's what no one tells you about sudden loss. It doesn't just steal your person. It fractures your rhythm. It disrupts the tiny anchors that kept your days steady and full. And it's not just loneliness. It's the loneliness of missing someone who made even silence feel full. The one who knew how you liked your coffee, who laughed at your bad jokes, who filled the spaces you never even noticed were quiet. Now every corner of the house feels like a whisper of what once was. You're still here, but everything's changed, and that is grief's quiet echo, returning again and again, not always with tears, but with the ache of every shared moment that now falls into silence. Grief doesn't move in straight lines. One moment you're numb, the next you're angry. Then, out of nowhere, you're crying in the cereal aisle because their favorite brand is still on the shelf. That's the part people don't see, the emotional whiplash. You wake up thinking you might be okay today. You open the window, make some toast, and for a brief second you remember what normal used to feel like. But then something small triggers a tidal wave, a scent, a voicemail, a photo tucked into a drawer. And suddenly, you're back at square one, undone. It's not just sadness, it's guilt. For the things you didn't say, for the fights that never got resolved, for the vacation you kept putting off. You replay the last words, the last days, wondering if you missed something, if you could have changed something. But no matter how many times you rewind the tape in your mind, the ending doesn't change. Then there's anger, not just at the loss, but at the world for moving on, at people who don't understand, at the fact that your life shattered in a second, and yet the mail still arrives, bills still need paying, and the world expects you to function. And woven into all of it is a question that's louder than all the others. Who am I now? For years, maybe decades, you were part of a we. Every plan, every future vision, every routine shared. Now you find yourself standing in a grocery store aisle asking, what do I even like to eat when I'm not shopping for two? The identity crisis is real. You're not just grieving the person, you're grieving the version of yourself that existed with them. And it can feel disorienting, even frightening to realize how much of your own reflection was shaped by someone else's presence. You might wonder, what's the point of any of this without them? It's a raw, painful question, one that might feel impossible to answer in the early days. And yet, asking it is part of healing, because buried underneath the grief and the whiplash is a quiet, fragile truth. You're still here. You're still breathing. You're still becoming. Grief doesn't mean you're broken. It means you loved deeply. And now you're learning how to carry that love in a world that looks different. Hour by hour, moment by moment. Grief isn't just emotional, it's logistical. In the days and weeks after sudden loss, the world expects you to handle the most complicated tasks when you're at your most broken. You're handed a stack of death certificates. You're told to call the bank, contact Social Security, cancel the utilities. And all the while, your brain is still trying to accept that they're gone. But the world doesn't wait for your heart to catch up. Maybe your partner handled the finances. They knew the passwords, the account numbers, when the bills were due. Now, you're left staring at paperwork you don't recognize, trying to guess your way through forms, calls, and questions that feel like a foreign language. It starts with something simple, like a phone bill. But then comes the credit cards, the pension paperwork, the life insurance claims, the title to the car. If your spouse was the one who filed taxes or dealt with Medicare, you might suddenly feel like you're drowning in mail and fine print. And it's not just about confusion, it's about access. You might not be listed on an account. A customer service rep might say, "I'm sorry, we can't speak to you without authorization." You might need to track down notarized documents, court papers, financial statements, all while just trying to remember to eat or shower. Even closing a bank account can feel like erasing them. Their name disappears from something you shared. And somehow, that hurts more than you expect. No one tells you how lonely it feels to walk into a bank, hand over a death certificate, and ask for help accessing money that used to be ours. And even when people offer help, well-meaning family or friends, they can't always fix the frustration. They can't sit on hold with insurance for 2 hours. They can't know what bills are set to auto-pay or which ones are about to be missed. You do your best. You sort the paperwork. You try to keep the lights on. You write down passwords and figure out how to manage things you never thought you'd have to. But the truth is, it's exhausting. And it's one of the loneliest parts of widowhood. Because while everyone focuses on the sadness, no one prepares you for the sheer mental load of surviving the details. You didn't just lose a partner, you lost your teammate in life's daily tasks. And now, you're learning how to carry it all alone. One phone call, one login, one envelope at a time. At first, the world surrounds you. People bring casseroles. They send flowers. They say things like, "Let me know if you need anything." The phone rings. Cards arrive. For a little while, it feels like you're not alone in the weight of your loss. But then, the days stretch on. The funeral passes. The flowers wilt. And slowly, almost silently, the support begins to fade. People go back to work. They stop checking in. The calls become less frequent. The messages dry up. It's not that they've stopped caring. It's that their lives are still moving forward. Yours, however, feels like it's standing still. You notice it in small ways. Friends talk about vacations. Family members bring up plans for the holidays. They say things like, "You seem stronger," or "You're doing so well." And maybe you nod, maybe you smile, but inside you're still aching. Because what they don't see is that grief doesn't follow a schedule. Just because time has passed doesn't mean the pain has. Some mornings, it hits just as hard as day one. And what's worse, now it's lonelier because fewer people are still listening. The meals have stopped. The inbox is quiet. Everyone assumes you've found your footing again, but they're not there at 2 a.m. when the bed feels too cold. They're not there when you walk into the kitchen and instinctively reach for 2 mugs. They're not there when the silence feels heavier than ever. And slowly, you begin to wonder if your pain has become invisible. You don't want to be a burden. You don't want to bring down the mood. So you say you're fine, even when you're not. You smile through dinners, attend birthdays, go through the motions. But underneath it all, there's still that ache, still that emptiness, still that silent question. Why does it feel like I'm the only one still grieving? This is one of the hardest parts of sudden widowhood. Not the initial shock, not even the paperwork. It's this, the slow, quiet erosion of support. The unspoken expectation that you've moved on when your heart is still remembering, still mourning, still healing. And in that silence, Many widows become isolated, not just from others, but from themselves. Because when the world moves on without you, it's easy to feel like your grief no longer matters. But it does. It matters deeply, and you are not alone. Even in the silence, even in the stillness, your grief is real, your story is not finished, and your healing doesn't have to happen on anyone else's timeline. There's no map for what comes next, no perfect step-by-step guide for how to live after everything has changed. What no one tells you is that reclaiming your life after sudden widowhood isn't a moment. It's a slow unfolding. Some days it feels like moving forward. Other days, it's enough just to breathe. It starts with tiny things. Waking up and making your own cup of coffee, not because you have to, but because you want to. Planting a flower in the garden and watching it grow. Opening a letter from a friend and smiling, really smiling, for the first time in a while. And then, one day, you laugh. It surprises you. It might even make you feel guilty at first. But grief isn't a prison, it's a season, and laughter is part of how the soul starts to mend. You begin to find new rhythms, a walk in the morning, a quiet evening with a book. Maybe it's attending a local support group or finding comfort in others who truly understand. Maybe it's talking to a counselor. Maybe it's just having someone who listens without rushing you to feel better. You begin to reclaim yourself, not as half of a couple, but as a whole person again. The bed still feels big. Some days are still heavy. There's still triggers, a song, a scent, a quiet Sunday afternoon that reminds you of everything that's gone. But in between the pain, something else begins to grow. Peace. Not because you've forgotten, not because it doesn't still hurt, but because you've survived. And in surviving, you've discovered something deeper than strength. You've found resilience. Not the loud kind that lifts cars or shouts from rooftops, but the quiet kind. The kind that gets out of bed each day. The kind that chooses to live, even in the shadow of loss. You start to write a new chapter, not replacing what was lost, not pretending everything is okay, but allowing joy and sorrow to live side by side. Grief doesn't vanish, but it changes. It becomes part of you, woven into your memories, your story, your strength. And maybe, just maybe, you begin to see that reclaiming life after loss isn't about moving on. It's about moving forward with all the love, all the memories, and all the wisdom that grief leaves behind. You carry them with you, and in doing so, you begin again. Sudden widowhood isn't something you recover from, it's something you learn to live with. There's no finish line to cross, no moment where someone hands you a certificate and says, "You did it, you're healed." Because grief doesn't work that way. It doesn't follow a schedule, and it doesn't ask for permission. Some days you'll feel steady. Others it will hit you all over again. A song, a scent, a quiet afternoon. Grief finds its way back in, uninvited. And that's okay, because healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means learning how to carry both the love and the loss. Your grief is valid. Whether you cry every day or haven't cried at all. Whether you're angry, numb, lost, or quietly enduring, it all counts. There is no right way to grieve. No perfect roadmap to follow. Only your path, your pace. And no matter how that path looks, you are not alone. Others are walking it too. Quietly, bravely, step by step. Rebuilding a life around a space that can never fully be filled, but can still be honored, remembered, and carried forward with grace. You loved deeply, you lost suddenly, and now you carry both. That doesn't make you broken, it makes you human. It makes you someone who's learning how to breathe again, laugh again, trust again, even if it's one small moment at a time. So take the pressure off. Let go of the idea that you have to move on. Instead, move forward with all the love, the pain, the memories, and the strength that comes from surviving something you never imagined you'd face. You are not broken. You are rebuilding. And in that quiet, courageous rebuilding, there is hope. There is life. There is you. If this message spoke to your heart or reminded you of someone you love, please share it. Grief is heavy, but it's lighter when carried together. Subscribe to Elderly Truths for more honest, compassionate conversations about aging, love, loss, and everything in between. And if you've lived through sudden loss yourself, your story matters. Leave a comment below, even just a word or a memory. You never know who it might help feel a little less alone tonight. Until next time, take care of your heart. It's been through a lot, and it's still beating.